안녕하세요. 캔뉴 인터뷰 김지연입니다. 12월 3일 오후 11시였죠. 윤석열 대통령이 비상계엄령을 선포했는데요. 계엄을 선포한 지 6시간 후에 국회 계엄 해제 요구와 국무회의 심의를 통해서 계엄이 해제되었고요. 이로 인해서 윤 대통령에 대한 탄핵 소추안이 가결되고 수사가 진행 중에 있습니다. 이 사건은 비상계엄이라는 선포뿐만이 아니라 국민들의 평화적인 집회 모습이 외신을 통해서 전 세계적인 이슈로 떠오르고 있는데요. 이렇게 전 세계의 사람들이 모여있는 이곳 뉴욕에서 이 상황을 어떻게 바라보고 있을지 지금부터 함께 인터뷰해보도록 하겠습니다. 네, 캔뉴 인터뷰 월스트리트 앞에 나와봤습니다.
I'm Josh Mosler, United States of America, Georgia, and I am the CEO of a construction firm, Founders Maintenance and Restoration.
I always wanted to be a dentist my whole life.
지금 한국에서는 대통령 탄핵 이후에 국민들의 집회가 지금 이어지고 있습니다.
I think that people would be really upset, obviously. I think that the parliament in Korea acted accordingly. They should have impeached him. We would definitely impeach our president here, no doubt about it. I think that it would be a really big deal if that happened. It was concerning, for sure. So where we're from in Georgia, Hyundai is a really big component of that area. They have a really big factory. They employ about 10,000 people in my area. So obviously with a Korean company being in our local area, we were really concerned, right? I think a similar situation in America would have caused a lot of unrest. Obviously, I think the Korean people are very patient, they're very fortunate. But I think in America, I think people would be storming Washington, D.C. I think people would be very, very upset. And I definitely think they would have impeached the president for sure.
한국 국민들에게 해주고 싶은 말씀이 있으실까요?
They ultimately did the right thing, right? People put their politics aside. His own party impeached him, and I think that was a really brave move on their part. And
my name is Manan. I am from the U.S. I work in healthcare. So I heard about it on the BBC. I was reading an article. I thought it was pretty surprising for a first world nation to undergo something so drastic without any sort of warning to the people. I feel like if I was a South Korean, I would be very confused, very frustrated. I think it's good. It was shut down. I do think it's kind of scary though that he was able to do that.
미국에서도 이러한 상황이 됐을 때 시민들의 반응은 어떨 거라고 생각하세요?
I don't think it would be something that shocking, honestly, in the U.S. It's something that was discussed when Donald Trump was president. He was impeached, but it wasn't followed through. It's not something that is unheard of.
한국 시민들이 지금 평화적으로 집회를 하면서 그런 모습을 보실 때 어떤 생각이 드셨나요?
I think that's the right approach. If you're not being attacked physically and you disagree, then the best approach, in my opinion, is to do it peacefully. Yeah, he famously said an eye for an eye can make the whole world blind. So, just because someone did something to you doesn't mean that you have the right to attack them violently. I'm glad that they didn't have to go through a situation in their history where they had to deal with martial law. It's great that they were able to continue their normal lives, but I think it's really important that when something like this happens to you in your country, that you take a close look at your politics and the laws. Make sure that something like this doesn't happen again.
So yeah, I heard about the martial law situation in South Korea. And I also read that the president got impeached and the martial law was also lifted, I believe, in 6 to 10 hours after the parliament was able to repeal what the president did. I'm not exactly sure why the president chose to impose the martial law, but I believe the president had some corruption accusations on him, and maybe just to save himself, he ended up taking control of the entire country. But I'm very happy to see that the country and the elected representatives fought back and they took control of the South Korean politics. But if the president ends up imposing the martial law, which essentially makes the army in charge of the entire country, there will be a lot of protest in USA. I do not think any president or any party who takes that step will be a serious contender in next few elections, at least in the USA.
이번 한국에서의 그런 사건이 또 세계인들에게도 어떤 메시지를 전달할 수가 있는 걸까요?
I think this can be a great moment of unity for the people of Korea. I don't think people of Korea should think too much about what the world is thinking about them. I think everyone is very proud that they stood up for their rights. And I hope the situation keeps getting better. And South Korea is already doing pretty good economic-wise. And I hope South Korea gets a more stable long-term government. South Korea is very technically able country. I think they have achieved a lot in terms of technical expertise. South Korea is leading in chip manufacturing, obviously through Samsung, and then you have Hyundai and Kia as well, and SK Hynix. But it's kind of nice to see people protesting for something that is so serious. and still finding a way to keep it lighthearted and stand together. I do really think the same kind of protest can be replicated in other countries. Like,
I'm Shiv, I'm a lawyer from Singapore. I read about it in the press. It's not something I normally hear about in a democracy, so it was definitely a shocker when I read the headlines.
싱가포르에서도 대통령의 비상계엄령 같은 일이 일어났다. 이랬을 때는 시민들의 반응이 어떨 거라고 생각하세요?
I think firstly people will be quite shocked, like they wouldn't know how to react because that's not something that normally would happen. Especially in Singapore, we are quite emphasized that we are democracies. It would be quite new. We do have national service, so we are kind of used to having like planes flying around, fighter jets and stuff. Our military takes a rather reserved approach, and our politicians aren't really going to be outright having our military deployed on the streets.
싱가포르에서는 어떤 방식으로 집회를 하시나요?
We do have a sort of speaker's corner in Singapore called Hong Lim Park, and people usually protest over there. Like, I don't know if you've heard about the law against homosexuality in Singapore. That was due to a lot of people rallying and trying to get support to get it decriminalized, and eventually it's good that it eventually happened because a lot of people are happier right now. I can't really empathize, but I do sympathize with them, and I hope that those who acted poorly are taken to task. I do hope that it gets resolved.
한국에서는 지금 윤 대통령의 비상계엄령 사태를 두고 한국의 민주주의가 시험대에 올랐다라는 평가도 이어지고 있습니다. 반면에 이곳 뉴욕 시민들의 여러 가지 목소리를 들어볼 수 있었는데요. 국민들의 자유롭고 평화로운 입장을 표현하는 모습을 보기 좋게 평가하는 분들도 계셨습니다. 오늘 뉴욕 시민들과의 다양한 인터뷰를 통해서 여러 생각을 들어볼 수가 있었는데요. 여러분들의 생각은 어떠신지 궁금합니다. 오늘 캔뉴 인터뷰는 여기까지입니다. 감사합니다.